Hurts back. He's going to run. He goes up the middle again. He is across the 20 and down to the 19.
Jalen's going to come out for a play. It looks like Kenny Pickett is going to come in, and they're going to check on Jalen Hurts.
We go into a game with a plan. If that were to happen, we go into a game with a plan. If both guys were to go down and Tanner were to be in, that's just something you go through on your weekly process. So again, that's not something that's a on-the-fly thing. That's something that's been discussed all week.
The Eagles had a chance to lock up the NFC East, but now they can't clinch until Week 17 at the earliest. That's Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Courtney Cronin, Aaron Goldhammer in for Evan Canty and Michelle throughout the entire holiday week. So you're stuck with us, and if you're an Eagles fan, you're stuck with dealing with this loss for the next couple of days. A wild back-and-forth affair that saw not only Jalen Hurts, but backup Kenny Pickett go down with injury in this game. And Aaron, I know we were talking a little bit off show because I was watching this game because it was game of the day. That's how it was billed within the 1 o'clock window.
Yeah.
Like, I was covering Bears-Lions, which some in the NFC North world might also say was game of the day if you like 2-score games and a 17-point loss. But it ended a little bit quicker than what was going on in Washington. So I'm going down to the locker room to, do post-game interviews and all of that. And I look down at my phone. I'm like, all right. They kicked the field goal, and then I saw they kicked the other field goals to make it 33-28. So I'm like, all right, 1:45, something left on the clock. Like, the Philadelphia win. It'll be, win number 11 in a row. They'll get to 13, whatever they have to do to secure this win. And then I walk out of the locker room about 30 minutes later, check my phone. I'm like, Jayden Daniels is him. Jayden Daniels legacy drive. QB1, rookie of the year, lock it up. And then I watch the highlights of that play. My goodness. The things that he overcame, the 2 interceptions in that game, the 5 passing touchdowns that he had. Yeah. I mean, I was like stunned by how this game fell apart for Philadelphia down the stretch. Of course, the costly drop from Devontae Smith, and he wasn't the only one who faltered there offensively for the Eagles. But I lean more on, what Jayden Daniels did to be able to put his team in position, another walk-off win for the Washington Commanders that very much keeps its place in the NFC East picture alive with this dub.
Well, I mean, very likely now the Commanders are going to be going to the playoffs. First of all, I just want to say, as somebody who is in Cleveland and follows the Browns for a living, Courtney, I feel so good for the fans of the Washington Commanders who were stuck with the worst owner in sports for so long, who hadn't had a quarterback going all the way back, I don't know, Doug Williams or Mark Rippon, I guess, won a Super Bowl, or they had a year of RG3. Like, this is the feel-good story of the NFL this year, right? Not only are they going to the postseason, but they've got the hottest young quarterback in the NFL. He's not in the MVP conversation anymore. But 2 of the most dramatic wins of the year, Courtney, were the Jayden Daniels Hail Mary and this drive that they put together to beat Philadelphia to be able to really take the next step and secure their playoff spot. So the fan base of the year, I mean, if I was a Commander fan last night, I don't know that I could have slept. There was so much excitement after beating Philadelphia. They've had so many big wins, and now they're not only going to make the playoffs, but maybe they have a shot to go and potentially pull an upset somewhere. And I think the Jayden Daniels is him thing is exactly right. I don't know how many quarterbacks, yes, Mahomes, Josh Allen, but he's probably now in that second tier of guys. I thought he showed so much poise. They turned it over 5 times, which means you hardly ever win, yet he just kept coming and overcoming and overcoming. And man, oh man, I got to tell you, I'm going to be rooting for the Commanders. That might be my team that I pick up and root for in the postseason.
Are they the feel-good story in the NFL this year? Because, of course, there's the Detroit Lions, a team that I saw up close yesterday, overcoming 21 different players that have been placed on injured reserve at different points of the season. People love Dan Campbell. They love the grittiness of that team. And
but they were expected to be good, right?
Yes, I mean, correct. But it's like getting back to the NFC Championship and people rooting for that. Washington came out of nowhere this past season, this season. We didn't know who they were at the beginning of the year. I mean, hell, we were just talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that gets a win over Washington in week 1. We didn't know Washington was going to be good. We didn't know Jayden Daniels was going to be the best rookie quarterback in this class. And to your point, entering that tier of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, period, regardless of age and experience.
Sure.
You know, I feel like this is the team. I don't want to call them America's team because we know that moniker is meant for another team. But this feels like a team that come January, when you put your own allegiances aside, especially if you're a team that doesn't have somebody in the postseason, you get behind Washington because of all of the years of quarterback futility that they had to go through and all of the years of bad ownership. Like, for them to be the team that you champion, I think a lot of people are going to get behind that.
I do too. I think they're going to become a little bit of a version of America's team. Now, the other side of this game, Courtney, I don't understand what the heck the Eagles were doing. I know that Jalen Hurts gets hurt, and that has to change everything that they do, but it didn't change everything that they did. I know you were focused on the game you were covering, the Lions and the Bears, and I was locked in on that thrilling Bengals-Browns game. But I did have one eye on this. They kept running Jalen Hurts' offense for Kenny Pickett. And I don't think Kenny Pickett, no offense to Kenny Pickett, but I don't think he has the athletic ability that Jalen Hurts does. So they're at that point, don't you have to, load up on the offensive line and say, okay, Saquon Barkley, if you're really an MVP candidate, you've got to carry us to this victory. Instead, they've got Kenny Pickett running read options and trying to throw a ton of passes. Look, Devontae Smith had a huge drop, and they probably should have won the game anyway. But I think this is another example of this is a 12-3 team that I still don't have great answers about what their head coach does from time to time. To me, it was inexplicable the way Philadelphia handled this game once Jalen Hurts went out of it.
Saquon Barkley, 29 carries for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns in the mix. Early on in that game, he crosses 2,000 scrimmage yards, I believe 18th player ever to accomplish that feat. Felt like at times they might have been prioritizing some of the records over, I guess, the health of this team when Jalen Hurts goes out. But you're right. Like there was no adjustment from the Philly side. Right. From Washington, you go from being, playing too high to single high because they saw the opportunity to take away things, to adjust to what the Eagles were doing offensively and, frankly, what they weren't doing. In relief of Jalen Hurts, I mean, he was only out there in the first quarter before he goes into the medical tent, gets that pretty hard hit from Frankie Louvu on the other side, and then exits the game, doesn't come back. Kenny Pickett, 14-24 for 143 yards. He threw a touchdown and an interception. And it wasn't enough. The Philadelphia Eagles end up losing this game 36-33. Are you confident that the 1 seed at this point, because of what Detroit did yesterday, what Minnesota did yesterday, which in about 30 minutes we'll be getting into here on Unsportsmanlike.
That's over.
The 1 seed feels like that's completely out of reach for the Philadelphia Eagles and that their path will be on the road in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, look, they'll start obviously at home, but then they're going to have to play road games. I do think they're going to end up winning the division. I don't think that's an issue, but now they got their starting quarterback hurt. They got their backup quarterback hurt. I believe his name is Trey McBride, who might be starting against, I don't know much about him, who might be starting against the Dallas Cowboys when they play their game next week. And then the other issue they have to figure out is how much they care about getting Saquon this record. He's 268 yards, I think, away. So it's possible that he could get it. But also you risk potential injury for Saquon. If I'm Philly, to heck with Eric Dickerson. Like I'm playing for much bigger things than just setting some record. Courtney is
the morning right there.
How big of a deal is that really? Is this like an all-time hallowed record that you really have to chase it that hard?
I mean, you're 268 yards away. When Saquon had 150 last night, it does feel like it is attainable. However, as for a team that has 12 wins right now, does Philadelphia not feel like the biggest pressure cooker in the NFL? I think it does. I was there last week when they ended up beating the Steelers, like the drama that's around that. It felt like, okay, everybody take a breather for a minute.
Sure.
They got to 10 straight wins. Then they lose this one, not to say sky is falling, but it does feel like things are tense based on the way that last year ended, and that still kind of carrying a vibe going into the final games here in Philadelphia. But we'll see. We'll see what they end up prioritizing, whether it's health or whether it's getting Saquon his record. He got one of them yesterday, 268 yards away from becoming the all-time leading rusher in the NFL. We want you to be a part of Unsportsmanlike Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. Call us, 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. ESPN Nation presented by Dr. Pepper. It's not college football season without the delicious taste of an ice-cold Dr. Pepper. College football, it is.
Eagles Nest News, Saquon Barkley's historic push for the NFL rushing record. Welcome back to Eagles Nest News, your go-to spot for all things Philadelphia Eagles. Today, we're talking about a special milestone that could make history for the Eagles' star running back, Saquon Barkley. After a spectacular performance in Washington, Barkley is just 2 big games away from breaking the NFL record for most rushing yards in a single season. Let's dive into what needs to happen for Barkley to reach this monumental achievement. A historic push, Barkley's rushing record quest. Saquon Barkley has been nothing short of sensational this season. After Sunday's game in Washington, he has accumulated 1,838 rushing yards. The current NFL record for rushing yards in a season is held by Eric Dickerson, who rushed for 2,105 yards back in 1984. To break this record, Barkley needs 268 rushing yards in the final 2 games of the season. Now, that's a tall order, but it's certainly within reach for a player of Barkley's caliber. The Eagles' remaining opponents, the Cowboys and Giants, both rank among the worst run defenses in the league. This presents Barkley with a real opportunity to rack up the yards he needs to make history. With his vision, speed, and power, Barkley has proven time and again that he can dominate defenses, and these next 2 games might just be the perfect chance to do so. The potential roadblocks, playoff seeding and resting Barkley. However, as exciting as this record chase is, there are some potential roadblocks that could affect Barkley's chances. The Eagles are in a strong position for the playoffs and may already have the number 2 seed locked up by the time they face the Giants in Week 18. If that happens, the Eagles might choose to rest Barkley to avoid any unnecessary injuries before the playoffs begin. In that scenario, Barkley would have just 1 game, Sunday's matchup against the Cowboys, to make up the 268 yards needed to break the record. While 268 yards in a single game would be a difficult task, it is certainly not out of the question for a talent like Barkley. We've seen him break off incredible runs all season, and with the Cowboys' defense struggling to stop the run, Barkley could very well turn in a historic performance. However, if the Eagles do choose to rest him, Barkley's chance at the record would depend on his performance in just 16 games. A record-breaking season still within reach. So, Eagles fans, while there are some challenges ahead, Saquon Barkley's quest for the NFL rushing record is still alive and well. Whether it's in Week 17 against the Cowboys or Week 18 against the Giants, Barkley has the ability to rewrite history. His drive, athleticism, and ability to take over a game are exactly what the Eagles need to keep their playoff momentum rolling. Even if Barkley doesn't break the record, his season has been nothing short of remarkable, and we're excited to see what he can accomplish in the coming weeks. What do you think, Eagles fans? Do you think Barkley can break the record, or will he fall just short? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Eagles Nest News for more Eagles updates, news, and insights. Fly, Eagles, fly. This video script covers the key points regarding Saquon Barkley's potential record-breaking run while maintaining an optimistic outlook for the Eagles. It invites engagement from fans and encourages likes and subscriptions for further content.